Right, here we go. Macrobius 15. Yeah, these things, when he had read them, Marcus Cato, or M. Cato, inquited. He said, Nay to Aulus. Aulus is the vocative. I think that nay is the same as was the other day. It's like an interjection meaning truly or something. You're a nugator. You're a rubbish speaker, excessively nimium. When you prefer to avert by prayer the blame, so when you're trying to divert prayer, rather than be free from blame. For we're accustomed to seek pardon, either when we have done error, or when we've erred imprudently, or when admissimus, when we've done some noxem, some harmful or wrong thing, by order of being compelled to do so. Okay, so the earliest daily dictionary ever, nay. Vulgar form for nay. Particle of assurance, verily or truly. This is Lewis and Short. Okay, you, he says, I beg or pray, who has populated, who has forced you that you commit this, what prior to doing you are seeking that you are forgiven, ignoscatord. 16. Now the argument that we give to this work, probably example or a brief about this work, as if we are speaking with a certain type of prologue, in the way of a prologue. 1. So I guess all that was prologue. This is the actual beginning. For the Saturnibus, some festival about Saturn, apud Vetium Praetextus. So this would be at his house, I think. Vetius Praetextus' house. Procurers, these are extending citizens of Roman nobility, and other learned people, other docti people have congregated at this guy's house. And the time, which is solemnly given for feriatum, it's a type of holiday as well, they're thinking that this time should be given in a liberal colloquium, liberal arts and the conversations, etc., that sort of thing. Also, they are offering mutual convivia, mutual feasting, or they're coming together to have a feast in each other's company. Neither will anyone be discating or leaving from this group, except to have some nocturnal rest, to sleep for the night. 2. Nam. 4. Through all this space of the holiday, the melior part, the better part of the day, fifth declension, will be occupied with serious disputes or conversations of this dinner. They'll be agitating spending the time with convivial sermons, conversations. So they have a bit of disputes over food. The disputes aren't as harsh as in English, so it's just discussing and conversations. Thus so that nullum time of the day, no time of the day, will be left at the end there, vacuum. Nullum vacuum go together. There will be no vacant time when they're not offering something learned or charming. Lepid's charming. Said erit, but it will be, in this table, more eucondia sermon, more pleasant conversations, so that she'll have more of pleasure and less of severity. For when I put others, for you might say when or while amongst others, other authors maybe, in which they have described conviviums, parties or feastings. Okay, we have cum correlatives here. Usually means both these or even more in this or something like that. So when some describe their conversations, we'll take it as even more in the Plato's Symposium. What have we got here? We don't have something more austere concerning this conversation of the partygoers, but various and charming descriptions of Cupid, which is love, personified, in which even Socrates not into tighter notice, a tighter knot as he usually does. Doesn't urge them or press them as he usually does. So it looks like in this bit of work, Socrates isn't really tying people up as he usually does and implicating, which means folding up or tying up his adversaries, but more he gives them space to elude than in a way of combating them. Apprehensions. So he gives a locum, he gives them a space to slip away almost and to flee. So these are not literally tying them up, there's just questions that are going to tie people up he's talking about. So they want to do it more charmingly than in the way of fighting. Yeah, decanting means fighting. Okay. 4. For it ought to be sermons, conversations, versare, being turned over or being used in the conversation. So the sermons in these parties ought to be ut iter ad petabile. Like they should be more seeking the venustate, more seeking charm and beauty or love, as they are wholesome and chaste, you might want to say. So people can't complain about them, I guess. So should have a good nature, and these are correlatives there. But matutina, but early in the morning, the disputes or the conversation should be more robustier or more stronger, in which men and the learned, and they're very famous, it ought to be, as it's fitting for these sort of people to be. Nequienem, for neither of Cotta, Laelius, and the Scipiones, all that Cicero wrote about, I believe, in their very ample discussions in matters. Quoad looks like as long as there are Roman letters or Roman literature, they'll be disputing in these old books, they'll be conversating about these. Semicolon, we'll just ignore that. But praetextos, these are other people here, you can see by the capital letters, Flavos, Albanos, Symmachus, and Eucistes, of whom have a similar splendour and are not inferior virtues. Or in the same way, they should be able to speak something. Licitum comes from licit, that means you can or you're able. And this non here cancels out the nequi it begins with, so if you take those negatives out, you get positives. So I was just listing these first few people which Cicero mentioned, and then it's mentioned these other people. They ought to be able to speak something in their own way. It should be licitum that they can. They should be allowed to. 5. Nec with a subjunctive. Neither to me is there something of a fraud or a deception maybe. If one or the other, one or more from these who are at the coetus at this assembly, coeget means forced, blah blah blah, of a mature age later than the age of protextus. Okay, so since he's getting people from different eras, that's not really a deception on his part that he's in this imaginary conversation, people of different eras are talking. Because by licitum again, which we saw up here, it means it's allowed. So it is allowed to happen in the testimonial of the dialogues of Plato, since, or being as it was, that, this guy looks nominative, Parmenides was older than Socrates, so that the boyhood of the one scarcely apprehends the old age of the other. So this apprehension would be overlapping, as they say. Even though there are different ages, nevertheless, amongst the two of them, it can be disputed with very difficult things. Arduous usually means difficult or steep. Okay, so it's all imaginary, and they're just linking people in this book will be having imaginary conversations. Inclitum Socrates. Socrates is nominative. Inclitum means famous or renowned. I think dialogum or something goes in there. So Socrates, in having a famous dialogue with Timothy, consumed his time in this dialogue or disputes, which constat, it's agreed that they were not non-fruited, that they didn't exist in the same secular, in the same era. 6. But Paralus and Xanthanthus, to whom Pericles was the father, with Protagora amongst the works of Plato, they discern, which means they speak about it or it can be written. In the second arrival and staying in Athens, okay, so these people have gone a second time to Athens, which much before an infamous pestilence or plague had absumed or taken away them, killed them at Athens. So it looks like these people had a discussion and they'd all died from a pestilence at Athens. Ergo, therefore, I've omitted, by the example of Plato, by his vote of support for us that is not fitting, the years of the people coming together, I guess, to count on my fingers. So he's blah, blah, blah. It's because they're all of different eras and different ages. He doesn't want to count up the years of all the people there on his fingers, even though he should only have 10, unless he's counting his toes. But some of these people who didn't even live at the same time, you'd need more than fingers to count them. Anyway, that'll do.